In this second part of the video, we're going to concentrate on the 1994 all-male production of As You Like It from the company Cheek by Jowl. Now, the production of the play brings together the text with the imagination of the directors, designer and cast. And no production is definitive. Each will have strengths and weaknesses. Each will interpret the play differently. Casting men to play all the parts was a valuable experiment which focuses on the sexual and gender exploration of the play. It extends the moments of challenge and underlines declared meaning. And this next section will give you a more detailed look at one particular approach to the play.
Here comes your father with his eyes full of anger.
Mistress, dispatch you with your safest haste, and get you from our court.
Me, uncle?
You, cousin, within these 10 days, if that thou beest found so near our public court as 20 miles, thou diest for it.
I do beseech your grace that I may the knowledge of my fault bear with me. If with myself I hold intelligence, or have acquaintance with mine own desires, if that I do not dream, or be not frantic as I do trust I am not, then, dear uncle, never so much as in a thought unborn did I offend your highness.
Thus do all traitors. If their purgation did consist in words, they are as innocent as grace itself. Let it suffice thee that I trust thee not.
Yet your mistrust cannot make me a traitor. Tell me whereon the likelihoods depends.
Thou art thy father's daughter. There's enough.
So was I when your highness took his dukedom. So was I when your highness banished him. Treason is not inherited, my lord. Or if we did derive it from our friends, what's that to me? My father was no traitor. Then
when we start to direct a play or produce a piece of theatre with a Shakespearean text, we try very much not to go in with any closed intellectual concepts about where we're going to end up. Because for us, the rehearsal period and performance period has to be a period of experimentation. That's one of the reasons why we choose Shakespeare as our house playwright in the first place, because he writes great plays that we continue to explore over a period of a year, and can actually explore it as adults and find interesting things in that play.
Nay, then. God bind you, and you talk in blank verse.
Farewell, Monsieur Traveller. Look you lisp and wear strange suits. Disable all the benefits of your own country. Be out of love with your nativity, and almost chide God for making you that countenance you are. Or I will scarce think you have swam in a gondola. Why, how now, Orlando? You, a lover, and you serve me such a...
I think the role of the director in Shakespeare is the same as in any other play. It's just that in Shakespeare you're dealing with a very great text. And for me, one of the elements of Shakespeare that makes him a great writer is the fact that each of the characters present an independent point of view, and that at any given moment it's possible for the audience to have conflicting points of view about the different characters. And so I think it's very important when you direct Shakespeare that you leave space for the characters to breathe, and that you leave space for the audience to come in and out amongst the characters. And I think that if you impose too tight an interpretation upon the play by Shakespeare, that the director basically closes the pores of the play and in a way that the play is rather impoverished from the point of view of the spectator. I think any piece of theatre, like any work of art, has to be created by the observer as much as by the originating artist.
Promise in love. He that will divide a minute into 1,000 parts and break but a part of the 1,000th part of a minute in the affairs of love. It may be said of him that Cupid hath clapped him with a shoulder, but I'll warrant him heart whole.
Pardon me, dear Rosalind.
Nay, and you be so tardy, come no more in my sight. I had as lief be wooed of a snail.
Of a snail?
Aye, of a snail. For though he comes slowly, he carries his house on his head. A better jointure, I think, than you make a woman. Besides, he brings his destiny with him.
What's that?
Why, horns. Which such as you are fain to be beholding to your wives for. But he comes armed in his fortune and prevents the slander of his wife.
Virtue is no hornmaker, and my Rosalind is virtuous!
And I am your Rosalind!
It pleases him to call you so, but he hath a Rosalind of a better leer than you.
We decided to do it with an all-male company for fun, because we knew that was how Shakespeare did it. I had memories of seeing the Clifford Williams production at the National Theatre when I was 14, which didn't mean an awful lot to me, but it seemed rather glamorous and exciting and dangerous. And I thought, you know, it would be very interesting to have a look at it again, this play, which seems to be so much about gender confusion. To look at it again with an all-male company, because the world, and certainly socially, the world seems to have changed so much since those days. But we weren't very strict about it. We also had a list of Rosalinds prepared to see, I remember, of women that we knew to play Rosalind in case it didn't work. So unless we found an actor who was, we felt was right for Rosalind, then we weren't going to do it. So we weren't that stuck on the idea. But we thought it would be an interesting thing to do. But we didn't know why. We didn't know where it would lead us. We just had a hunch that it would produce something extraordinary, the tension between having men playing women.
What happens to the text is there are layers, layer upon layer of irony, and some scenes are played completely tongue-in-cheek, and then some scenes are played with absolute sincerity, and then reminds you that this person is actually male at the end of it, which has the audience. It has their intellect, it stops their intellect actually, and just goes straight through to their emotions, because we enter a world of otherness where actually I do not exist. This person does not exist, it can't exist, so I've depoliticized myself, if you like. And from that safe position, using Shakespeare's words, he can say things about love and sexuality that really do hit home, because they're not coming from a woman, and they're not coming from a man, they're coming from this thing. So you have more license, really. And there are layers of the play that are really revealed when a boy man is saying them. Some things that Rosalind says about women, that when a man is saying them as Rosalind, you hear them all the more clearly.
Woo me. For now I am in a holiday humour, and like enough to consent. What would you say to me now, and I were your very, very Rosalind?
I would kiss before I spoke?
Nay, you'd better speak first. And when you were gravelled for lack of matter, you might take occasion to kiss. Very good orators, when they are out, they will spit, and for lovers, lacking, God warn us, matter, well, the cleanliest shift is to kiss.
Well, how if the kiss be denied?
Well, then she puts you to entreaty, and there begins new matter.
Who could be out?
Whether or not a director has a strong vision before the start of a play, during the rehearsal period, he or she has to make choices and discover how scenes should be interpreted. This often comes from a very personal response to the text.
We realised when we were doing the play that it's about young people falling in and out of love, and that my personal experience of young love was something that was really rather painful. And I discovered some diaries recently that reminded me of that phrase of Joyce's, when he said that being in love as a teenager was like, he describes in one of the short stories in Dublin as the woman playing on his body like, she played on his body like it was the strings of a harp. that idea of being the slave of your feelings. And that young love, really, we sentimentalise it as older people and see those young, idyllic young couples walking around hand in hand. But actually, it really hurts, young love. It's quite vicious, and there's an inner violence about it.
Well, in her person, I say I will not have you.
Then, in mine own person, I die.
I kind of went into the rehearsal period kind of flinging that down as a gauntlet to the company, saying I'd like to investigate particularly. It is going to be a period of experiment, but one of the criteria for experimenting is going to be this idea that there is something rather violent at the heart of the play.
The poor world is almost 6,000 years old. And in all this time, there was not any man died in his own person, videlicet, in a love cause. Troilus had his brains dashed out with a Grecian club. Yet he did what he could to die before. And he is one of the patterns of love. Leander, he would have lived many a fair year, though Hero had turned none, if it had not been for a hot midsummer night. For, good youth, he went but forth to wash him in the Hellespont, and being taken with the cramp was drowned. And the foolish chroniclers of that age said it was Hero of Sestos. These are all lies. Men have died from time to time, and worms have eaten them, but not for life.
I would not have my right, Rosalind of this mind, for I protest. A frown might kill me.
By this hand, it will not kill a fly. Come. Now I will be your Rosalind in a more coming on disposition. And ask me what you will. I will grant it.
Then love me, Rosalind.
Actors and actresses also have to make decisions which enable them to uncover a character and allow the audience to understand what is happening. This is particularly difficult with Rosalind, not only because of cross-dressing, but because of the elaborate charade she plays with Orlando, even to the point of pretending to marry him.
Can one desire too much of a good thing?
There are a lot of things happening at that point, because as well as thinking I must find out what he thinks of love before I again trust my life to another man. This is my thinking now, I'm not thinking of the play. Before I again trust my life to another man, before I again step into that area, I must make sure that this one is going to stay and be around and be dependable and not lose himself in some weird vision of what I am not. And all the time she's doing that, she has to control herself, because at every given moment she does simply want to throw her arms around him and just hide or say it's me or kiss him, and she goes through all of those emotions while she's being Ganymede. You could say she's more herself when she's Ganymede. She's more Rosalind when she's Ganymede than she would be if she's in a dress. But yes, she does, and getting married and kissing him and will you love me? And she says, oh yes, on Fridays and on Saturdays, and all of that, for me, personally, is her having to keep control of her sexual passion and the other passions of emotions that are concerned with love. So that's why she slips in and out of all of those areas.
Wilt thou have me?
Aye. And 20 such.
What sayest thou?
What? Are you not good?
I hope so.
Why then can one desire too much of a good thing? Come, sister, you shall be the priest and marry us. Give me your hand, Orlando. What sayest thou, sister?
I pray thee, marry us. I cannot say the words.
You must begin. Will you, Orlando, have
Go to, will you, Orlando, have to wipe this Rosalind?
I will.
Aye. But when?
Why, now, as fast as she can marry.
Well, then you must say, I take thee, Rosalind, for wife.
I take thee, Rosalind, for wife.
I might ask you for your commission, but indeed I take thee, Orlando, for husband.
Well, there's a girl goes before the priest. And certainly a woman's thoughts run before her actions.
So do all thoughts, they are winged.
In rehearsal, I thought, well, brilliant, Shakespeare, well done. You know, fantastic play, wonderful lines. But why? Why go into this game? for many other reasons, all the men in her life have betrayed her. All the men in her life. She's never been able to trust any of the men in her upbringing. And here's one that she thinks, I can empathize with this person. I know what it feels like to just be lonely and on your own. And she meets him in the forest and doesn't recognize her. And that's where the anger comes from. So that's how we got round that point. I do think there needs to be something, because then it doesn't matter. If she just sort of pretends to be this person, there's no reason for it. And what it does show is that Orlando is actually in love with an idea of Rosalind rather than Rosalind herself. He's in love with the idea of this princess in an ivory tower who is quite sort of meek and, shy. And that's what he's in love with, and he's writing all these poems about her and putting them on trees. It's not the most grown-up love you could imagine, really. And she sees that at the moment that he doesn't recognize her. She sees all of that and realizes there's so much work to do.
Now, tell me, how long you would have her after you had possessed?
Forever. And a day.
Say a day without the ever. No, Orlando. Men are April when they woo, December when they wed, and maids are May when they are maids, but the sky changes when they are wives. I will be more jealous of thee than a Barbary cock pigeon over his hen, more clamorous than a parrot against rain, more newfangled than an ape, more giddy in my desires than a monkey. I will weep for nothing, like Diana in the fountain, and I will do that when thou art disposed to be merry, and I will laugh like a hyena, and that when thou art inclined to sleep.
But will my Rosalind do so?
By my life, she will do as I do.
Oh, but she is wise.
Or else she could not have the wit to do this.
The wiser, the waywarder. Make the doors upon a woman's wit. 'Twill out at the casement. Shut that, 'twill out at the keyhole. Stop that, 'twill fly with the smoke out the chimney.
A man that had a wife with such a wit, he might say, wit with a will.
Nay, you may keep that check for it till you met your wife's wit, going to your neighbour's bed.
And what wit could wit have to excuse that?
Marry, to say that she came to seek you there. You shall never take her without her answer, unless you take her without her tongue. Oh, that woman that cannot make her fault her husband's, let her never nurse her child herself, for she will breed it like a fool.
Oh! For these 2 hours, Rosalind, I must leave thee.
Alas, dear love, I cannot lack thee 2 hours.
Oh, I must attend the Duke at dinner. By 2 o'clock, I will be with thee again.
Go your ways, go your ways. I knew what you would prove. My friends told me as much, and I thought no less. 'Twas that flattering tongue of yours won me, but 'tis but one cast away, and so come death. 2 o'clock is your hour.
Aye, sweet Rosalind.
By my troth, and in good sooth, and so God mend me, and by all pretty oaths that are not dangerous, if you break one jot of your promise, or come 1 minute behind your hour, I will think you the most pathetical break promise, and the most hollow lover, and the most unworthy of her that you call Rosalind, that can be chosen out of the gross band of the unfaithful. Therefore beware my censure, and keep your promise.
With no less religion than if thou wert indeed my Rosalind. So, adieu.
Well, time is the old justice that examines all such offenders. So let time try. Adieu.
The story of Rosalind and Orlando is at the centre of the play, but there are many other layers that have to be taken into account by director and cast.
The play for me has always seemed to be a kind of sister play to King Lear. That Lear has, there are many, many thematic similarities in terms of banishment, kings in woods, but there are endemic things as well. There's endemic madness in As You Like It. It reached its fruition in King Lear. But there's also this theme of nothing, which is absolutely terrifying in King Lear. Nothing will come of nothing. But there is a despair at the heart of Jaques. And Jaques, to me, is at the side of the play, commenting on the play. He's not at the centre of the play. To me, he's at the side of the play, commenting with this despairing negativity, the most frightening idea of all, which is that there is no such thing as love, that life is merely a question of self-interest, that what we know as love is a mixture of lust and sentimentality. We've heard it all before. It's an incredibly frightening proposition now. It was a very frightening proposition then. It always will be. It's a very frightening thing we have to face through our lives, and I think the play is about that.
Playing? All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again towards childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.
As we saw in part 1, another revealing relationship in the play is between Celia and Rosalind. Again, actors have to be able to interpret for themselves what is happening in that relationship and how it develops. At the beginning of the play, Celia seems to be much more dominant.
Why, cousin... Why, Rosalind, Cupid have mercy, not a word.
Not one to throw at a dog.
No. Thy words are too precious to be cast away upon curs. Throw some of them at me.
In the text, Celia has many more lines and has the power, because Rosalind is simply now the cousin. Celia is the princess. And at the beginning we see Rosalind again, one of the many times where she's a quiet moment on her own, and she's thinking about just what she's lost, about her father and so on. And I think Rosalind gains her power in the forest because she has to de-sex herself in order to be able to take active action in her life. So she has to actually, as many of the other characters do, I mean in Shakespeare's plays, taking off the dress and putting on the breeches enables you to actually say what's on your mind as a woman. And as a woman, putting on the breeches and saying what's on your mind, it's normally sharper, cleverer, and faster than the other men who are on the stage or in that scene. And that's a device he uses a lot. But I think, really, that at court, Rosalind has no power.
Throw some of them at me. Come, lame me with reasons.
Well, then there were two cousins laid up, when the one should be lamed with reasons and the other mad, without any.
But is all this for your father?
No, some of it is for my child's father. Oh, how full of briars is this working day world!
They are but burrs, cousin, thrown upon thee in holiday foolery. If we walk not in the trodden paths, our very petticoats will catch them.
I could shake them off my coat. These burrs are in my heart.
Hem them away.
I would try if I could cry hem and have him.
Come, wrestle with thy affections.
They take the part of a better wrestler than myself.
Is it possible that on such a sudden you should fall into so strong a liking with old Sir Rowland's youngest son?
The Duke, my father, loved his father dearly.
Does it therefore ensue that you should love his son dearly? By this kind of chase I should hate him, for my father hated his father dearly. Yet I hate not Orlando.
No, Faith, hate him not for my sake.
Why should I not? Doth he not deserve well?
Let me love him for that. And do you love him? Because I do.
Oh, here comes your father with his eyes full of anger.
One last element is the design of the play. This production, designed by Nick Ormerod, has a very Spartan set, but there's a clear contrast between the use of muted tones later in the forest and the use of bold colours here at court.
It's interesting to talk about the different way that Nick's used colour during the evening. It might amuse you or surprise you to know that we've never discussed that. So those, again, are things that arise organically. So a lot of the interpretative ideas of the actors are things that arise organically and have never been the subject of intellectual analysis, because they're things often that have come from the heart and just seem to be right. And if they seem to be right, very often you can destroy them by analysing them. Afterwards, you know, you might indulge in a period of self-congratulation or the reverse, but during the process, if it, very often if it has to be said that very often if it needs to be discussed analytically and intellectually, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's a sign that you've gone wrong.
But as students studying drama, we are expected to analyse plays. So how does the process of producing and directing for the theatre differ from studying at home?
Me, Uncle.
As far as I can see, a necessary condition of all education is generalisation. So as soon as you start to write a paper, an essay on Shakespeare and tragedy, you're being asked to take specifics and to generalise therefrom in order to make a point, in order to investigate things. And I think that goes through all our levels of education right until the very end. And it seemed to reach a crescendo for me at university. And what I discovered doing plays was that that actually directing had much more in common with A-levels in a funny way, that you throw yourself on the play and you study an individual play as an individual work of art, and you kind of throw yourself on it.
Then, good my liege, mistake me not.
In one sense, then, the process of performance is different to that of academic study. But whatever the process, students, like actors and directors, will eventually come to their own interpretation of the play. There will never be one correct view. There will always be many interpretations which will challenge and evolve our understanding of Shakespeare and, more importantly, ourselves.
If she be a traitor, why so am I. We still have slept together, rose at an instant, learned, played, eat together, and wheresoe'er we went, like Juno's swan, still we went coupled and inseparable.
She is too subtle for thee, and her smoothness, her very silence and her patience speak to the people, and they pity her. Thou art a fool. She robs thee of thy name, and thou wilt show more bright and seem more virtuous when she is gone. Then open not thy lips. Firm and irrevocable is my doom which I have passed upon her. She is banished.
Pronounce that sentence then on me, my liege. I cannot live out of her company.
You fool. You, niece, provide yourself.
If you outstay the time, upon my honor and in the greatness of my word, you die.
What we have to understand is that As You Like It is a version of As You Like It. It's a subjective creation by people who are influenced by all sorts of things when they come into the rehearsal, and by audiences who are influenced by all sorts of things that they see on television, hear whatever happens in their lives before they come to theatre. So together we make something, but we make it, it's very subjective. It's important, I think, to realise that we choose Shakespeare because we think he writes fantastic plays about us, not because we think he writes fantastic plays about other people. I think we're very selfish like that. It's because he enables us to explore our lives and the lives of our audiences that we choose to do him.
Prithee, be cheerful. Knowest thou not the Duke hath banished me, his daughter?
That he hath not.
No, hath not. Rosalind lacks then the love that teacheth thee that thou and I am one. Shall we be sundered? Shall we part, sweet girl? No. Let my father seek another heir. Therefore devise with me how we may fly, whither to go and what to bear with us, and do not seek to take your change upon you, to bear your grief yourself and leave me out. For by this heaven, now at our sorrow's pale, say what thou canst, I'll go along with thee.
Why, whither shall we go?
To seek your father in the forest of Arden.
Oh, alas, what danger will it be to us, maids as we are, to travel forth so far? Beauty provoketh thieves sooner than gold.
I'll put myself in poor and mean attire, and with a kind of umber smirch my face. The like do you, so shall we pass along, and never stir assailants.
Were it not better, because that I am more than common tall, that I did suit me all points, like a man? A gallant kirtle axe upon my thigh, a boar spear in my hand, and in my heart lie there what hidden woman's fear there will. We'll have a swashing and a martial outside, as many other mannish cowards have to outface it with their semblances.
What shall I call thee when thou art a man?
I'll have no worse a name than Jove's own page, therefore look you call me Ganymede. But what will you be called?
Oh, something that hath a reference to my state. No longer Celia, but Aliena.
But, cousin, what if we essayed to steal the clownish fool out of your father's court? Would he not be a comfort to our travel?
He'll go along all the wide world with me. Leave me alone to woo him. Let's away. And get our jewels and our wealth together. Devise the fittest time and safest way to hide us from pursuit that will be made after my flight. Now go we in content to liberty and not to banishment.